All right. This is another episode of the Park It Podcast. I'm joined today by my good friend in comedy, Ritu Chandra.
Yes,
Nice.
that's
I,
perfect.
I hope I got it right. My partner, significant others, is Indian, and you know I'm trying.
Well, I mean, it wasn't like the best Indian pronunciation or
Well, I
anything, but I think it was adequate. It wasn't butchered. So yeah, that was a good job.
okay. Yeah. No. Trust me. I disappoint Indian people all the time.
Her parents, is that because you're not Indian? I'm
yeah.
sure.
Yeah. But you know what? I've got some advantages.
Are they
Being
hung up on that? Do they wish you were Indian?
I don't think if they are, I think they're over that portion of their of it.
Mhm.
Like I know he didn't like me at first. I could tell. You can tell when the dad doesn't like you.
Yeah,
But I think just by not being a complete loser, I was
right.
able to.
Win them over.
Yeah, yeah. Because there were probably worse options.
Right.
Yeah,
So that's how they looked at it. They're like, well, it could be worse. So this is
yeah.
good.
I think everyone kind of has that, right? Like, because like for my family, I know when I first got out of college and I was looking for work, I wasn't as successful at first, and I could tell like my parents were like, "What is this guy doing with his life?"
Yeah. Yeah. I think though now the kind of it should be changing how people view that, because I feel
Mhm.
like there's so many people who become super successful without always knowing what's coming next in their life and what to do. But like I don't I have my son is 12, so I actually really want to encourage a non like because I know him, he's going to want to go to college and all that, but like career wise, I'm like, you don't have to wear a suit or a freaking tie and sit at a desk and be miserable for the rest of your life like a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like I really want him to find something he likes to do. Like he loves writing, and
Right.
so it's like you could be a writer. Like you could do that. You could be a college professor, and you could never have to fucking wear a suit. Like do that 9 to 5 thing and be on a college campus every day
That,
teaching. So hopefully he'll. I'm hoping he doesn't take a traditional route, just because I don't think most people who do are happy.
no, I agree that I know like I got a big push. I'm sure you did growing up to go the more traditional route. Um,
Absolutely.
I think I've been able to do like comedy just because I like still hold kind of like a traditional 9 to 5, and that's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's his hobby, you know.
Right.
Right.
Well, you do have to pay your bills,
I do have to pay my bills.
or have a husband who pays your bills in my case. So that
Hey,
works as well.
hey, however it works. Uh,
However it works. I
Still
think
on.
I remember the last show I feel like I remember performing with you on was at a bicycle shop.
Wow, wow. You know, I was gonna bring up like the stress factor or something like that, but you're right. It was that bike shop, and
But that was ages ago.
that was a long time ago. That was like 2 or 3 years ago, maybe.
That was one of the weirdest shows ever because it was literally at a shop that sold bikes.
Yeah, I think that was Schaefer's show. I think it was Schaefer
No, it's
Awards.
Chris Sicoli.
Okay, Sokola. Yeah, that makes sense.
Chris Sicoli. Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah.
yeah. And yeah,
So
you're right. That was like it was a literal bike shop. You know, and like I think there's like
yeah,
a
and we
vegan
were on the
restaurant
porch.
attached to it.
Maybe we were on the porch. There was
Hmm.
like Chris's sister, some of her friends, and maybe a few other people there.
Yeah,
But I think it was a fun show. I remember it being fun, but I think I remember all my shows being fun now that I haven't done comedy in a year.
right, right. When you step away from it, it's like, hey, that was fun, but like as you're doing it, it's just
Yeah, like
it's a
that
grind.
bike shop gig, that was a great gig.
Yeah.
Like,
Meanwhile, it's like you're looking through your like your credits, like, oh my god, how did I end up on this porch
I think
next to this trike?
definitely. That's definitely what was going through my head at the show. But now I'm like, oh, the good old days.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think anyone that's done comedy, like, not to say that I'm like a high level comic, but I know like you've performed in a lot of places. But anyone that's like done comedy at a decent clip
Yeah.
has had the hell gig, you know,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
like
For sure.
like Italian restaurants while people are eating,
Yeah, and they're not
bowling
paying any
alleys,
attention. Yeah, exactly.
gentlemen's
Or
clubs.
the best is when you perform and they're like, "Oh, no one's here to see the show. They're not expecting a comedy show, but you're just going to go up to a noisy bar and somehow this is going to work great. And you're like, okay, this is never going to work, but
Yeah.
that
Well,
kind of stuff.
well, to your point, talking about like kind of encouraging your son to try different things, which I think is cool. Like, how did you get into comedy? Like, what?
So when we talk about traditional, I grew up, my parents are from India. They would have liked a doctor or an engineer. My grades were definitely not pointing in that direction. I did well, but I'm not a math nerd. And, so I'm not typical Indian that way. Like I was really good at history and English. And I think they were like, God, she's useless. What is she going to do with these? Which is terrible, because they didn't mean to do it, but they completely discouraged me from following things that I was good at, where you want to encourage a child to,
Right.
kind of, oh, look, you have a natural affinity for this. See where this leads you,
Mm-hmm.
So I studied in school because I had to, if I wanted to go out and have any kind of social life. It was never like from within me. It was because I had to. So I did well and I got into some good colleges. I went to UCLA and I did terrible there. I partied my ass off. Like I did acid instead of going to final, like just stupid shit. Like I was constantly on the verge of being kicked out and my parents had every right to pull me out of there, but I do not know why they didn't. But I managed to finally graduate because at some point I was like, okay, they are going to pull you out of here. And the last thing I wanted to do, I mean, I was living in LA. I was like, young. It was like so much fun. I was like, I don't want to go home. So if you study just a half of what you're supposed to, you'll pass your classes. So I started doing that and I actually ended up starting to do well finally. But it had to kind of, I think that's the thing you have to realize is like, it has to click for everybody in their own time. You can't force people to perform like it. I mean, you can to some degree, but it has to click. So then I was just fucking around LA for a long time and I had no aspirations of being a comedian or anything. And every time I met another actor or another comic or another writer, which is every day in LA, I was like, ugh, I'm so sick of these people. So like I had no interest in that. And I was just like dating a guy and I wanted to move to the Valley and I wanted to have a Volvo and that was my future and I loved it. And then he fucking cheated on me and dumped me.
Oh.
So I was like, all right, now I need plan B. And so LA, so I was just like, I was 27 or 28 and I was starting to get the sense from guys that I was too old to date anymore because it's LA and you are too old to date then. Because there's like literally a busload of like 22-year-olds who show up every day. So I aged out of LA. I thought the best way to leave LA would be like, I got to go to grad school. So I got myself into business school in Chicago by some grace of God. And I went there for 2 years. So again, because my parents wanted me to have a serious job, you know what I mean? So I never even entertained doing, like I did this, I always wanted to try something related to performing.
Right.
But I knew it was just not an option, that they would just be like, no, you can't do that. So here I am in business school now pretending I want to do business, which I caught my husband. So the degree wasn't completely useless.
There you go.
But, then, whatever. I graduated, I had some jobs, nothing ever, it was never what I was meant to do. And then finally at the age of 40, living in New Jersey as a mom, I was like, I'm going to try stand up. And then once I did it, I freaking loved it. And I was like, this is what I had been meant to do.
Yeah, I've seen you perform. It's like, I think like, you definitely have like an affinity for it. Like you're a comic. Right?
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, it's not even just the performing. I'm fucked up. Like I don't fit in the mommy group here. You know what I mean? Like when I say I was crazy in LA and doing these crazy things, like none of the other moms have similar experiences to mine. Like nobody was just, I don't know. I was just living life. You know what I mean? And partying too much or whatever it was. But so I, like a lot of the women here, they got married young. They started having their kids young. They've never lived outside of this town, even where I live. And so so I was super different. And then when I met comics, I was like, oh, these are the fuck ups.
Yeah.
But they're not, but they're smart. You know what I mean? They're smart.
It depends, right? Like,
It depends.
you got to cycle through the fuck ups. Like,
Yeah.
I think that being a fuck up is helpful. Like,
Yeah.
I'm similar, like where, like I did well in school, but like I was definitely partying, but like my brain power, I guess, was enough to like get by.
That's good.
But it was
Yeah.
also a state school, so I mean, like I'm not saying anything too crazy.
Right.
But you know, like I always had that thing too. Like when I was younger, I like didn't even like think about this, but like I would watch like Comic View on TV. I would listen to like Richard Pryor tapes, and like while I was doing that, I wasn't even putting it together. That like I was just like, oh, I like this
This is
stuff.
something you should do. Yeah. Yeah.
Back to that book I was reading, you know.
Yeah. Exactly.
And like when I went to school at Rutgers, and I went to the Stress Factory, and I was again already a comedy kind of nerd. Someone brought me to a show because they knew I liked comedy.
Yeah.
I watched like Patrice O'Neal perform and stuff like that, and I was like,
that's awesome.
that's it.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
this is the thing I like.
So was your first open mic at Stress?
No. So I'm originally from Maryland, in like the DC area.
Okay.
So my first open mic was in DC. Actually, like I went all through college, and I was like, I kind of want to do stand up, but I'm like a young guy. What do I have to say? You know? And
well, I'll tell you, when you're a young guy, you talk about jerking off and
Hitler probably
like dating and no, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
No. But I remember I was at some like party one night, and I was talking to some people in like near the bar area, and I was just like, yeah, you know, I'm thinking about doing stand-up. And the guy I was talking to was like a bartender at this place called the Riot Act Comedy Club. And he's like, yeah, you should come by. I was like, well, fuck, I'm caught now.
Yeah.
Like,
good.
Yeah, totally good.
Yeah.
Totally good. And once you go to open mic, it's still scary, but you realize that like there's various levels of proficiency.
How bad people are, right?
Yeah.
Like they're really bad. I'm not nearly that bad. Although I shouldn't say that. I've been nearly we all have our moments.
We've been bad. I think you get that first time bump, right? Like the first time you go up and you do that thing where it's like, this is my first time, and then that's 20 seconds gone.
Yeah.
Keep claps. And then
exactly.
That bit that doesn't work at all, like you don't know joke structure, and they're like, oh, that was nice.
But the thing is, like, you're like waiting for them to say, like, because in your head you were going to go up there and everyone was going to start cracking out wild, and then you're like, you know, like that nervousness of silence.
I think it's the second and third time where like it's saying something, it's like, oh, I'm bad at this.
Yeah.
I'm bad at this, but like you're already addicted to it at that point. And
was there a good scene in Maryland?
The DC scene is good, but it's tight knit. Like, you know, a lot of people here complain about cliques and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And because you can't hit as many rooms, right? Like if you're in Jersey and New York, you can, especially New York, you can go hit 20 rooms in a night if you want to.
It's crazy, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. DC is like, all right, there might be 20 shows this month. You might be able to finesse your way onto.
Yeah.
But everyone that I worked with was pretty nice and supportive. It was a good scene, but I was very young in that scene. And then once I moved up here, like things started to click a little bit more because like you said, you just get more reps.
Right.
So
you came up here to do comedy, or for a job? To work.
Because I had moved to Portland for a little bit because again my partner she had a similar situation in like school where she had to take a little bit of time off, and I was like, I could try Portland because I was bartending at the time. I was like, I don't have possessions or
that's perfect though. That's what you're supposed to do when you're young, is go fucking live around and do different things. Like that's kind of shit I tell my son too. I was like, I don't want you staying in New Jersey. You know what I mean? Like, you want to come back to New Jersey someday to raise your family or whatever bullshit. But while you're young, you get out, you go live a bunch of different places and see stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever you can do.
I think this is the type of state where like, you should try somewhere else because this is a very specific place. Like, it's a cool place and it has a very unique diaspora, but like, this is not a normal fucking state. It's not for everybody. Strange shit happening up here.
No, like because I spend so much time in California, I have a lot of friends who live in California. They could not handle New Jersey.
No, no.
Like they can't handle any kind of confrontation. Nobody confronts them ever in California. If they confront them, it's like I remember being with my sister-in-law. She got in a car accident. I think my nephew was like 2 or something. It was like ages ago. And she's like, oh, we bonked each other. I was like, normal fucking adults don't talk like we bonked each other. Like, this is so like they got out. They're like, I'm sorry, it was my fault. No, I'm sorry, it was my fault. I was like, first of all, you don't fucking admit fault. Okay. Correct. This is not how this works. Right. Like, it's different. That's not how two moms hitting each other in a parking lot at a park would work here.
No, not here.
It could end in death. You know what I mean? Like,
it's possible, but
it's possible.
I mean, it's just I think it's a good idea. Like I know I was doing not like research, but I was just on like Facebook or something. I saw your son's is a swimmer and stuff like that. You guys were raising money. I thought that was cool. And it's like that's good. Like encouraging something outside of the norm, because like you were saying about comedians, I just don't think, to your point, that a lot of normal people are happy. To your point.
No, I don't think so.
And it's just like all they do is like consume shit, right? It's like, all right, someone else made this thing, and like, where do I like go to get my next serving?
Yeah.
Versus like a comic where it's like, all right, it's gonna kind of suck, but I'm gonna take a risk and see if this stupid joke I have, like,
and you're so excited to do it. You're so excited. Like there's like, I was like, I gotta try out this new bit. But for sure, I think it's been a pandemic. It's been a year. I am in a lull right now with feeling creative. At the beginning of the pandemic, for some reason, I felt super creative. I had all these ideas and I was making little videos and and then it just died. It just kind of died. And I still feel a little dead about it. And I miss it. Like something's missing in my life because I don't have any. I don't feel like my creative juices are flowing, or whatever you say.
Yeah. I think it's coming back.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Well, I asked you to do my show.
You did. And,
So I used to produce a monthly in Morristown, New Jersey, and then last March we had to cancel the show because coronavirus hit, and then now we're back. We're going to do a show in March. I'm vaccinated. That's why I feel comfortable doing it. Yeah. And so we'll see how it goes. I'm kind of curious to see. I'm super prepared to bomb on stage, and I'm super excited about it, which is even weirder because I'm like, of course I'm out of practice. I mean, but I got to get back. I'm excited to get back up there.
You got to take the swing, right?
Got to take the swing. I'm just curious to see if people are going to come out. I have no idea if anyone's going to buy a ticket.
That's the question mark. But I think that you'll sell tickets. I mean, and I'm here to kind of help too. What day is the show, actually?
It's March 18th. If you go to I didn't put it on my website, but it'll be on my website.
Okay.
Or you can follow. Yeah, my Twitter is weak. You know what happened? I had not like any kind of great Twitter, but I had a Twitter with like followers. And I forgot during the election, I posted something and I started getting so much hate. I got scared. I posted some kind of joke about Trump and his fucking people came at me. And I literally was like, oh my God, like it scared the fuck out of me that I deactivated my account. And then next thing I knew, Twitter had deleted it.
Well, that's fair. I mean, like in that Morristown market, I know that there's a lot of Trump support. I work up there. And it's we are in a strange time, like politically. I know before we started, we were talking about the Capitol riots. And like when I was watching it, because I follow politics like way too much, right? I'm on like 538. I'm looking at polls. I'm like, and I knew that like if the election was going to be close, which we kind of knew it was going to be, that there was going to be this kind of like pushback of, is this fraudulent or is it not? Like regardless of how it went, right? And on the day of the Capitol riots, like I was telling some friends, I was like, this whole thing is kind of goofy, right? Like the votes are already done. Like Mike Pence is just like he's basically just like holding envelopes, right? Like it
Right.
doesn't matter. So when everything was going down, like I texted my brother who works on the Capitol because the first lockdown, I was like, "Hey, it looks like it's getting a little active out there." He's like, "Yeah, a little bit." And then
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah.
Like holy shit.
Which we didn't really even understand the severity until these hearings when they started showing these fucked up videos, like really intense
Right.
videos
Right.
suddenly
Yeah,
appearing.
there was a lot of misinformation, like even at the
Yeah.
time, because people were trying to wrap their head around it. So it's like, oh, these are unarmed people. There's this and that, and it's just like it's Antifa, like just
Yeah. Well, they always want to blame Antifa. I don't
mhm.
really still understand what anti-Antifa is. Like, I know what it is, but I'm like
Right.
anti-fascist. Like, that's a really bad name for your group if you're really about like, but they're anti-fascist, so that should mean they're good.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things where
Do they really exist?
yeah, that's the thing. It's like yes, they exist, but like to what level? And the problem is the right wants to make the entire left Antifa,
Yeah.
everybody on the left,
Socialists,
yep,
all
socialists,
socialists, Antifa.
Black Lives Matter, and they want to make Black Lives Matter basically like a terrorist organization at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like similar to the way the left reacts to the right. Like they care more about shit on our side than we do. Like I'm not going to like Antifa meetings. Like I couldn't be bothered, right?
No.
Same thing as like Republicans. Like they don't want to own what happened on the 6th. Like your average Republican is like, I would never do that. It's like,
yeah,
well, I would never, I don't know, burn a
right. Right, exactly. Exactly. Right. It's sad though, because it does feel like the ability to come to the middle and agree on anything has been completely thrown out the window. And I hate that because I'm not, I lean left. Like, yeah, I lean left because I believe in people's rights. That's where I lean left. But actually there's probably some maybe, economic policies or things like where I could lean right. Like I'll be honest, I'm a little torn on minimum wage because I do know when it goes to $15 that the guy who owns a hardware store in town is gonna let somebody go because he's not making money like that he can just pay you $15 an hour or whatever it is. And that's been shown. That's one of the things I remember from learning in business school about the minimum wage. So yeah, I'm not always just immediately, So I just wish more people weren't just it's like the Super Bowl now. It's like your team versus my team. That's it.
It is. And to your point, to like our detriment, where look, the $15 minimum wage, I get the issue, like the minimum wage does need reform, needs to come up, but
absolutely,
to your point, there's always degrees, like someone's going to get affected. And I think what happens too often, really on both sides, but I think the left is pretty good at this, is dismissing that outlier, right? Like it's like
right.
For instance, like
and Trump kind of gathered them all together and was like, I'm here for you.
Right.
Like all those outliers.
Yeah, Trump was very effective at that. I think that he doesn't get enough credit for sort of the ability to kind of market, and even though he wasn't really, in my opinion, a populist, like he convinced people he was.
He sure did.
A blue collar billionaire, like that.
I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense, and yet he did it like better than any Republican has ever done it.
Yeah, and I mean, like to this point, like the latest thing this week that made me sort of pause and think about this was the whole thing that's happening in Texas, which is a whole tragedy. But like when because I work in finance, so like I was watching Fox Business during the day, and somebody went on and was like, yeah, it's these windmills or something like that, they're freezing. And I was just sitting there, I was like, well, that's incredibly stupid. Like, it's like, it's Texas, right? It's like, okay, yeah, sure, the green energy in Texas. But
yeah, exactly.
But like now this is a wedge issue. Like people on the right think that green energy is the reason that Texas is having their problem.
Right.
People on the left clearly don't. And like real time, I just watched that battle line happen. I was like, well, this is way too dumb for us to be
Yeah.
like fighting aggressively about.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
The
know?
focus should just be on helping Texas. That's it.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
only
totally,
focus that there should be. But
totally.
it's crazy.
But we got to score political points.
I know.
Did
I
you
know.
have you been watching today? Because my day started with whether Ted Cruz went to Cancun, and then it kind of ended
I saw
with
that,
Mars.
and his excuse for going is bullshit. He's like, I had to chaperone my daughter and her
Nonsense.
friends, but the wife was with them. So how come you both need to go chaperone? It was nonsense.
It was
He's
nonsense.
such a gross piece of shit. And that you can't like, ugh.
I think that's bipartisan, actually. I think that might be
You
the one
think,
thing we
yeah.
all agree on.
Oh yeah, well actually, well that is bipartisan, but I think what was it? Wasn't it the Democratic governor of New Mexico flew off someplace tropical too during the pandemic or something? He was like, nobody travel, and then
Yep.
he fucking was out of there, or it was Colorado or Denver. It was Denver,
Something
I
like that. I
think.
know what you're talking about.
But
Yeah.
it was on the left, and it's
Yep.
like, yeah. And then Gavin Newsom's eating fucking dinner at French
Right.
Laundry and
Right.
wherever the fuck, and it's like, they all suck. Can we
Exactly.
agree on that? Can we agree that they're all hypocrites at least?
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like for the Ted Cruz thing, honestly, my school of thought is coming back made it worse, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, no, you're down there. You're down there.
Own
Just
it.
be on the laptop. I'm remote working.
Right.
Even like making a family thing. It's like, hey, look, I would love to be here with my constituents, but I didn't feel it was safe for my family to be in the cold. So
Right.
I got resources. What do you want from me?
Right. I'm sure he's not the only one who's out of there.
Oh yeah, no, of course not. Of course not. But
do you know anybody who's down there?
I've got family in like the Houston area. I think some in Dallas. They're okay from what I understand. Like they're doing okay, but it's a bad situation.
Yeah, I have a friend in Austin. She's freezing. Like their propane ran out for their wherever they're. I'm not even under like she had to explain that to me. I was like, you have a propane tank that like gives energy to the whole community. I'm like, ours just comes from, I don't even know where ours comes from. Right. There's a fucking line. It just comes, I think, in somehow. I don't know. But it's here. I know we don't share it with anybody. I get the damn bill. It's just my name on it. So I don't, but I guess because things are built so new and so fast out there, they just use these propane tanks because there's not enough time for them to come lay the lines and all that stuff otherwise.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting when like places like that become like a hot button sort of issue. Like I was saying, my wife's family's from Oregon, and like all summer it was Portland. It was that 3 blocks in Portland. We got to look at we got to look over there. Now it's like we're saying, is it the wind turbines or is it the oil industry? And it's just like you're in, like you said, like you're in Long Branch. Why do you care about what's
I know
the energy in Texas, like to prove some obscure political point?
Yeah, that's what we do.
Currently.
So did you always have an interest in politics, or did that just happen recently? Is it a recent thing because there's so much constantly going on, it feels like, or we're trapped at home, so we're just more attuned to everything that's happening?
I've had an interest. When I went to school, actually, I majored in political science.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I started with like comp sci or something like that. I was like, it's too much math. And I was like, it still has the word science in it. And I've just always been, I'm more interested in almost like the part everyone hates, the theater of it, like the storylines. It's almost like pro wrestling. It's like, this person did this in 94 and now they're doing this. Nancy Pelosi's on the top rope and Mitch is in trouble,
Well, things are wild now. I mean, things that used to knock you out of politics forever don't even register on anybody's screen anymore.
Right.
Like you're very young compared to me, but there was Gary Hart was like a Democrat and he wanted to run for president, and there was a picture of a woman who wasn't his wife, like sitting on his lap on a boat, and that was it. We never heard from him again, and now it's like you could grab her by the pussy, Gary, and you'd be fine.
Yeah, I mean, Trump did show the cheat code, which is politicians kind of police themselves by having shame. And he was
Yeah.
like, I don't respect this institution.
I know. It's
And,
crazy.
and
Nobody ever thought of that. Nobody ever thought of just being like, I'll own it.
yeah, going back to the Ted Cruz thing, like by acting like it's a problem, you made it a problem. Just be like,
Yeah.
I would be playing beach volleyball. I'd be like, what the fuck do you want from me? Like, you know, I would find an intern to blame it on. You know what I mean? It's like they booked this
That's
trip.
too funny.
I can't go back now.
That's too funny.
But no, Trump really did show that all you have to do is just weather the storm. Like,
yeah.
It's like today. I know everyone talks about like cancel culture and stuff like that today, but it's like now if you can just sit there and not care, you'll be all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But like
ignore it.
Correct. But most of us don't have that ability. I don't. Like I'm sensitive. Like if you say something mean about me, I'm like, oh no, I gotta fix this.
What could you get canceled for?
Well, I thought it was interesting you were talking about what you're saying before. This is roll this clip when I get canceled. I was doing acid in LA. I was like, yeah, I've done some decent psychedelics in my day, you know.
Yeah.
Honestly, like the thing is, like, you don't know what's going to cancel you. Like, it's going to be some obscure Facebook post or tweet from 10 years ago that like is going to look terrible today, and I'm just gonna be like, oh shit. And like,
that's what I always tell. I tell my kid, I was like, your biggest liability to like having a political career is your mom. It's not
right.
even anything, because he's so level-headed and everything. I was like, your mom and everything she's done, don't even think you have a chance of running for politics at all.
Yeah, he's gonna be getting the Nobel Peace Prize. We're just gonna pull it back like, oh, we got this footage of your mom.
Yeah, exactly. So
I've been trying to live like a pretty, you know, down the middle, like nice guy life. So like, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. And that's where I'm coming from, which is I know working in corporate is not a good idea for me to do stand up or to do a podcast.
Right.
And if they sit me down and say, you said this, I'm just going to eat it. Right. Cause like it was a choice.
So why are you doing this? You're not worried about that?
I'm doing this because I want to have more conversations like this, because I'm concerned about the current temperature politically and like socially. I think that people are working with these very binary, unnuanced worldviews, and it's causing us to say and do terrible things to each other. And like, I'll be a punching bag. Like if someone doesn't like my particular brand of politics, like, all right, that's cool. And like, I'm down to talk to like anybody about really anything.
Right. I don't know if you could get in trouble for your political views as long as you don't say anything in, what is it? Just, you know.
Like the incendiary or like, or inflammatory,
exactly.
that type of stuff.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Although and unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, it does seem that you're more likely to get in trouble if you have not even pro-Trump kind of views. Yeah. Those are the ones that people want to start to dissociate themselves with, especially after the Capitol riots. Like I have yet to hear of a conservative getting rid of one of his employees for having liberal views or something.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with it, but the other side of it is like, I think it's a messaging thing too. Like that's not a running sort of like liberal concern. And maybe it is because of what you're saying, that like, we're not getting canceled, but like if you got to think about like,
no, see, that's the thing. Liberals are canceling each other. That's what's weird.
Right.
Liberals are going through each other's Twitter and canceling each other.
That's true.
It's stupid. That's all I have for that. It's stupid.
Yeah, we're a self-policing body, but like it's a very inconsistent measuring stick.
It is. It is, because it's like it's gotten to the point. It's a fine line. There are things that I do feel like you shouldn't say, but that list is pretty short for me because I think you need to give people the freedom to say a lot of different things. but I don't think a lot of people would agree with my list, with how many things I would be okay with.
Yeah, I think that the right has a point in this sense. Like if you look at the pretty much every presidential election in like the last 20, 30 years, like the left tends to get that popular vote majority. Right. That's just the way the population breaks down. Most universities are like left-leaning institutions. Most corporations are like kind of catered to the left. It's just like the left brand of messaging has like kind of won the day.
Yeah.
And for conservative viewpoints, like, yeah, you can't espouse a lot of like conservative views and still be considered a polite member of society.
Right.
So I think they have a point in that sense. I think that because of the frustration of that a lot of times people within those ranks struggle to get that point across without kind of further entrenching themselves in that situation. Right. But again, if my worldview was like more or less a minority worldview, yeah, I'm sure I'd be concerned too.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. But you're right. Like, I think we overdo it. Like, this is gonna sound bad. Maybe this is what gets me canceled. Like, for instance, like Me Too. I think that was like a necessary thing, right? Like to address the fact that there's like harassment in the workplace, harassment just in general, or like toxic masculinity, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But we
and that people were
big swings.
We're really looking the other way. Oh yeah. Some of the stories then that start coming out, and you're like, okay, you had a bad date.
And it's like the right, to your point earlier, like is very good at just like being like homogenous and protecting themselves from that, versus the left where like our initial instinct is like, if you're even remotely radioactive, we're gonna cut you out and not have to worry about you anymore.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how that's going to change. I'd like to see, because sometimes it's like, I don't even understand how I feel about it. So I don't know, I don't know what's like, sometimes I'm like, yeah, that person should be canceled for what they did or said, or, fuck them. But, then it's like, it's just turned into a witch hunt. That's all.
Yeah.
It's turned into a witch hunt for some people. So
I was watching a story this week, and I know people have different views on this, but like Amy Cooper, right? Or whatever. Yeah.
That bitch. Yeah. She went to my business school.
Nice.
Yeah. I was like, finally, I'm not the most disappointing person to the school who's graduated. I was like, she gets that honor now.
Absolutely. But it's like when basically she took whatever her like sensitivity course, and like they dropped the charges basically, and people were like upset, and I was like, like what do you want to happen here, right? Like what further step do we need to take in society for this offense, right? Like
she lost her job. That's a pretty big deal.
She lost her job. She publicly been outed. Yep. Yeah. She had to deal with, I'm sure there was court fees and all kinds of other stuff, and like
attorneys. Yeah, right. Absolutely.
The guy that it happened to was basically like, it's a teachable moment. I'm not too mad. Like, right. I'm cool. So like, if that guy's cool, I'm cool. Right.
Right. Then we can all move on from this. Right. Then we don't. Right.
And I'm sure, like, again, there's systematic racism and all that stuff, but it's like, we gotta pick the battle, right? Yeah. Amy Cooper's not the battle. Like,
right.
She did help start the kind of Karen craze. Like she was like the first like big time Karen that I remember in 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She definitely started the craze. But I remember though, because that was happening and we were kind of like, as comics too, it was kind of there was some humor to be had of it, right? Sure. What she did wasn't funny, but we were all trying to find the humor in this,
Well, that's what we do.
Situation. Right. Yeah. But then it was like right when George Floyd happened.
Yeah.
Because she kind of got forgotten. I was like, if there's anyone who's kind of happy about George Floyd, it's Amy Cooper, because immediately that kind of got dropped from everybody's like everyday talking about news story. But I remember because I was still like hung up on the Amy Cooper thing, and I saw a little blurb on the news about video of police officer yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
And I read the blurb and it seemed so unlikely. I was like, oh, that's clickbait.
Right.
And I just ignored it. I was like, oh, it's I was at night. I was like clickbait, and I went to bed, and then I woke up in the morning, and then the news story was everywhere. I was like, oh, fuck, that was not clickbait at all. This is really happening now.
Yeah. So that was like a literal kind of like spark, like that set off a whole conversation in the country. And, like
it's
I said,
still going.
Absolutely. Still going.
Yeah. Still going.
Like I said, these are conversations that need to be had. Like, I think that for me, I stopped kind of making my expectations in the sense of like what I want to happen, right? Like, for instance, like the Trump impeachment. Like, I've got different views about that, but it's like I pretty much knew he was going to get acquitted because, like, that's just impeachment's a political thing. It's not a legal thing.
Right.
So, like, politically, what is the most likely outcome? And that outcome more or less happened with some strangeness in it. But like the Amy Cooper thing, when I read it, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, and I saw all the hate posts like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It's just like, whatever. Yeah. You weren't even thinking about her last week.
Yeah.
Like, you can't expect the system to like put out the outcome that you want 100% of the time.
Right.
Like, it's just,
I know, but I think at this point we're hoping for just like what 50% of the time would be a good start? Would be a good start or something. I don't know. I mean, I am. My son's at an age now too where it's like you can't hide this from him. No, you can't. And I'm very fortunate that the school he goes to wasn't going to hide this from the kids, and they were going to discuss it. And it's a private school, and they made it very clear that Black Lives Matter. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then this may not be the school for your child because we will be talking about it. And that made me incredibly happy. But I had to like go through this with my kid, and I made the decision actually to show him the tape.
Yeah.
Because I thought he needed to see. It's one thing to hear it. It is. It's one thing to hear it, and it's one thing to be like. But it's one thing to see what happened to him and understand where the rage is coming from and why things need to change. And I took him to a few protests, and people were like, it's COVID. You shouldn't take him to protests. I was like, this is not the time. Like this, look, we wore our fucking masks. We tried to stay away from people, but I need him to be an agent of change. I need him to grow up and be an agent of change. And that's not going to happen by shielding him from what the hell is happening right now.
No, it's true. It's true. I've been out and about. Like I've, I kind of like waffle sometimes on like exactly where I fit in the space, in terms of, when all the protests that first started, I was actively thinking about like, how much do I want to get involved? Right. And what really changed things for me was when someone from kind of like the community reached out to me and was like, hey, we want you to come out, we want you to say something. And that made me realize that like people are looking for, not to say I'm a leader or anything, but it's like people are looking for
some guidance, sure.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And look, sometimes just being called to something is what gets you out there, right?
Right.
So like I went to a few. I was glad to get out there. I do tend to think kind of cerebrally about this stuff because of my political background,
right?
And try to figure out what's the best effective method because there's a lot of whataboutism now,
right?
But look, I think sometimes just whatever your gut feeling is, you have to go with it. So for you to say like I want my son to be an agent of change, and I had to get out there. That's coming from in here. So you have to do it. You have to do it.
Yeah. So I'm optimistic that the new administration will. I mean, obviously they can't just fire all policemen or I don't know what they're going to do, but I'm optimistic they want to address it and they will come up with something I don't know what that is. Do you have ideas about what they should
Um,
do?
I mean, people have kind of spoken about what they think should happen. I mean, there's an active conversation on the left between like almost like defunding the police, abolishing, and there's all kinds of variation in that spectrum. I think that again, like the police are one aspect of this. I think the way that we as a society look at things is another aspect of it, which, we hear more people talking about mental health uh, guidance and assistance. We hear people talking about de-escalation tactics. And going back to like Amy Cooper, if someone's less likely to just call the police for a random thing, that
Right.
over time is going to have an effect, right? Like,
Right.
it's not the solution, but making people pause and say, do I want to be the person calling the police on this black person?
Right.
Right. Given what
You're gonna be punished if
right.
yeah.
Right. And then, the other side of it is like, I think Biden is actually more amenable to actually like funding the police in different ways, maybe on like training and stuff like that, which I don't think
Yeah.
is the answer. But I don't know. It's one of those issues that I don't know if there's a right blanket answer here.
I know.
But again, which is why I'm more inclined to say that like the behavior of individuals is going to be more important than a policy response.
Right.
Yeah. Like just I don't know, thinking about on an individual human level, like what your actions could result in based on the current system that we have,
Right.
might be again, it's just a start, but it's a tough one. I don't know.
It is a tough one, and they have their work cut out for them
Mhm.
because I do believe they I don't want yeah, I'm gonna say they owe black people something for that they got into the White House. They cannot get there and fucking forget to address these important issues now.
I think that's fair.
That's it. That's
think
it.
that's
They cannot
I-
fucking
yeah.
fuck the group that helped vote them into the White House over.
It's a reliable and consistent voting bloc that the Democrats need to continue to pay attention to. I mean, black people push them over the top in Georgia. Black people are the
Yeah.
reason that Biden was able to like eke it out on Super Tuesday and all that. So yeah, no, they owe the community.
So why do you think though that Trump ends up with so much of the black vote? More than you would expect, or is that just a
term.
yeah? Tell me that. I'm interested to hear this.
Yeah, so I know the people, and it tends to actually be black men that are just kind of like not convinced that the Democrats are it, right? So it's not a large percent of the population. I mean, it's like it's maybe 1 in 10 black really men would vote for Trump.
Right.
So like the number is higher, but you kind of went from like 1 in 20 to 1 in 10. So that's significant.
Yeah.
But what it is just a long-standing distrust for the system.
Yeah.
And people that don't feel like the system has worked for them. Part of the reason Trump was there was people didn't think the system worked.
Exactly. Right.
And part of the reason Biden has not truly captured, and I think it's a younger black vote, is because of some of Trump's messaging. I mean, it did come through the 94 crime bill with Biden and stuff like that. Like those messages worked.
Yeah, I don't know. I still can't forget how Trump said in Central Park, the men accused of that they were guilty even after they were found innocent. I mean,
yeah, that was bad. Like,
I'm not excusing Biden, by the way. I'm not excusing anything.
No, I think you have to look at politically. I think we almost do too much of a purity test. You have to look at the likely outcome, right? Like we're in a two-party system. Which party more aligns with your ideology? That's it. We don't need to make it more complicated than that. We can definitely like put political pressure on our politicians and try to hold them to account. Like Biden certainly recognizes that he's got an imperative from the progressive wing of the party and the African Americans, to your point.
Yeah.
So I think that what people didn't quite factor in. And what made me say, okay, I'm in for Biden in terms of the run was when Super Tuesday came around and when like the Jim Clyburn sort of wing of the party put him over the top. The black sort of church has a very, sacred place in the community. And
right.
when a guy like Biden, and this will never get reported in the mainstream news, but like when a guy like Biden gets to sit in like the pew in like an old, like almost like Martin Luther King Jr.'s church, that means something. It may not mean anything outside of the black community, but it means something in it.
Right.
And I was like, okay, like I can't convince my mom to like Bernie Sanders.
Right.
But like she likes Biden, right? So it's like, okay. And when Biden's numbers were like he's doing better with women and he's doing better with black people, I was like, well, that's it. That's the winning combination. Doesn't matter what who I want to see there. It's like that's the coalition that gets you in the White House.
Right.
And like I like Bernie, but I thought that his messaging was inaccurate, right? The same way that Trump's messaging was inaccurate.
Totally. I could never go along with Bernie.
Bernie said that he had the youth vote.
Also, he's never going to win.
That's it, right? So Bernie said that I have the youth vote and I have like basically like the Latin vote. And then when the vote happened, he didn't. And I was like, well, you're wrong. So,
right.
Like, so once Biden had a winning coalition, I was like, that's it. Like, run this guy.
So I didn't realize you're married.
Yes.
Okay. So you and your wife could produce the next Kamala Harris.
Possibly, actually, yeah. Yeah, seriously.
I was like, look at that.
It's very much possible.
So you guys were both equally as happy to see her become.
No, my wife is like
was she happier?
No, not at all.
Oh.
Actually, because she's farther left on the spectrum than I am. Like I'm kind of like center left, and that's interesting in house parties. Like, excuse me, in dinner parties. But no, I mean she was okay. Like she was happy, right? But like I think that there's a certain segment of the left that just like they don't want this particular
woman
group. They'll vote for them, but like no, I think Kamala's actually politically savvy. I think that a lot of the things that people say about her are some are born in like misogyny, some born in racism, and it's just like it's like, was she too good at prosecuting? Like she was too good at her job? That's what the problem is. It's like it's a corrupt system, but it's like like I know having parents that like push you to like succeed in a traditional way. That's exactly what the community wants her to do.
Yeah.
Like, if she had gone there and was like, I'm gonna prosecute these people, these people, we would have been like, get the fuck out of here. You're not a serious person.
Right.
But like now in the lens of 2020, it's in 2021, it's like, oh my God, all the black people in jail, which is a problem. I don't want to make that sound like I'm dismissing it, but it's like,
no, absolutely.
Like Biden was the only person when the crime bill got voted.
Right.
No one talks about what the Congressional Black Caucus was behind that, right? Like, it's not part of the narrative right now.
Right.
It's like Kamala, she was a fucking good prosecutor. She was the first black female prosecutor. In that state, and she did her job very fucking well. And she's the second black woman senator ever. And she did her job so well, she's vice president. So I don't give a fuck what she did. She must be good at what she does.
I gotta be honest with you. I never thought, I know she's only half Indian, but I never expected to see anyone who was even half Indian in the White House in my lifetime. I really didn't ever expect it ever. I really, which is like, we're just gonna always be the old white guy. That's just who we are. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I mean, Barack Obama, obviously, but I never thought we'd ever stray from male. I didn't.
Well, that's interesting. So like for you, like the Harris run, what were your thoughts when like she started kind of getting steam?
Well, I didn't love some of her background stuff as a prosecutor, but It did. I'm sorry. The election did become about not Trump. So you're right. You're looking at, okay, so these are my two options. How could I possibly vote for that one? Like, that's not my ticket. So I don't think you're going to love everything about a ticket or candidates or whatever. And I think also we have to allow room for growth and change. The problem in politics, it just looks like you're being wishy-washy, or you're lying, or you're trying to please people. And I get that. But I mean, something from 1995 that he did to 2021, it is very possible he's changed his point of view between now and then. I mean, I mean, I've changed my points of view.
Sure. Well, that's why we were talking about tweets earlier. It's like, I don't, honestly, if you brought back shit I wrote down 10 years ago, I would be like, what idiot said that? Or like, who thinks like that? So people do change. And look, at the end of the day, really, there's one goal, right? In this situation, it's to win. Right. Did they win? They won. So,
and we don't have to see him anymore.
Right. You can't really complain about the way you won if the alternative is you lost, right? Like,
exactly.
Because, like, you know, look, if Bernie had made it all the way there, right? Does he win? I don't actually think so. I think the socialist thing sticks to him too hard, right?
It does.
So it's like, I don't know what you want.
Yeah. And I don't think that. Look, I'm optimistic. Like, I'm optimistic. Let's hope they can make some things happen.
We'll see what they can do. I mean, it's like everything. It's so.
I mean, I already feel better. I think we were talking about that. Yeah, the Capitol riots threw me for a loop, and I wasn't happy. But once Trump actually left DC, and now, you know, I was you're a news junkie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. So when I became a news junkie during the pandemic, and then especially during the election, I mean, glued to the fucking couch for 3 days on MSNBC, like, you know, like not sleeping. Oh my God, I love him. Did you actually follow Leslie Jones' Twitter at all when she was talking? She called her my calculator holding Prince, but it was just so funny because she had these long videos of just her love for Steve Kornacki, and it was just it was hilarious. It was hilarious.
That's so funny.
She was my favorite thing during that. But so it just it was consuming, and I'm kind of happy to go back to not having to check first thing when I wake up in the morning what the fuck is going on in the world.
This is healthy,
right? This is healthy. Let me go back to being stupid.
We can't wake up every day, especially in this pandemic environment. We're worried about one fucking guy.
I know.
There's billions of people on this planet. We're worried about one guy. You open the newspaper every day. It's this guy.
I know.
And that's a failing of our society that we even got there. But no, this is great. I sat down today, like you said. I drank some lemonade. I watched a Mars. I watched a Mars rover.
Yeah.
I made fun of Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
You know,
life feels like it feels good again.
And look, we still got plenty of problems, right? But I think that by being able to start to focus on the issues and not the man, I think that's going to help us get somewhere.
I agree.
This is long overdue.
Yeah, long overdue. I agree.
Yeah,
it was a rough 4 years.
It was rough, and where did that time go? Right?
I know. My son was in 4th grade when he was elected, and I remember he came home from school. He was at a different school then, and then he was like, "Oh, we did a vote in the class, and Hillary won by a landslide. Trump didn't get one vote." I was like, "Okay." And I was like, yeah, because in my head, I was like, yeah, because that's exactly what's going to happen. He said, grab her by the pussy 3 days ago. I remember watching that and being like, it's over. It's over. There's no race. And then I just remember that night watching, I was like, what's going on? This is so weird. Okay, this is alarming.
Right.
I'm going to bed. And I woke up in the morning and Trump was president.
Yeah. See, I'm a news junkie, and this wasn't my first Kornacki run. I remember I was at a Starbucks, a very classic liberal millennial story, and the Comey investigation got opened up again, and I was like, fuck? I was freaking out in a Starbucks. I was just looking at the margins. I'm like, man, you're maybe up 2 points. That's a 2 point swing easily right there. And it didn't really hit me until the day of. Like, I sat there driving to work and I was like, this motherfucker might win. Like, and that was the first time it really hit me that, like, of course he might, though, because, like, there's only 2 fucking options. So
see, I really thought once the grab her by the pussy, and it's like, he's on fucking tape saying it. Like, I'm telling you, somebody couldn't run for president because there was a girl on his lap in a photo.
I know.
Now you have this man saying this. There's no way anybody's going to go into a voting booth and say, that's our guy who should represent our country. And yet they did.
Here we are. But yeah, I mean, that's what happened. So
yeah.
Luckily, we don't have to worry about Trump, at least in the near term.
No.
And we'll see where it goes.
Not ever again. I want to thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Absolutely. I had a great time. I miss seeing comics and hanging out with comics. And when you're feeling up for it, you're going to have to come perform.
Absolutely. I'll definitely.
It's an open invitation, so you just let me know.
Okay, I'll let you know. And what's
maybe
the website?
let me run the first few shows and make sure nobody dies, and then maybe you'll be good to go.
That's a good test.
Yeah.
What's the website?
My website is rituchandra.com. That's RITUCHANDRA.com. I'll have the show up there. And then you can follow me on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, where I'll also have the show posted at the Ritu Chandra. So
okay, perfect. Well, hey, thank you for being on. This is a great conversation.
I'll talk to you later.